Today on Podcast Them Down, these guys are talking at me about Star Trek again. Welcome to Podcast Them Down. I'm Tim Regan from U.S. power metal band Burning Shadows, Fade to Black Metallica tribute, Dual-Violin folk metal band ISENMOR, and recently vacated Graves True Zombie Metal. Be sure to subscribe, like, or follow. And now, on with the show. So I'm here with Doug and Matt once again. We assumed that the Man Trap episode was so popular and successful, we're just going to keep going. And I'm told there was more than one episode of Star Trek.
Yeah, we're just going to steamroll on through.
Yeah, you know, worst case, this whole thing just turns into Star Trek. You know, we'll probably get more listeners that way anyway.
Well, Matt and I had some good discussions last week, and we do recognize the importance of tying, the heavy metal community and the Star Trek community, there's a lot of points of commonality. And we're trying to bridge all that. Like, this is singularity here. So we're going to rate this episode and whether it's metal or not.
Exactly. And I think as we describe it to you, perhaps all three of us by the end of the episode, even though Timothy hasn't watched it, will also be able to determine whether or not the episode was metal.
Oh, I like the idea. The discourse impacts the decision. And he's the vote.
He's like the wise judge, Solomon, who will just hear our cases and determine. Now,
it's interesting because being metal probably does not mean it's good Star Trek or objectively good. For instance, Star Trek Nemesis is pretty effing metal.
That's fucking metal right there.
It does have a tech death name to it.
See right there.
Oh, movie is tech death.
I know what you're thinking. How long can we keep this up? Well, according to Memory Alpha, the Star Trek wiki for fandom, there are 801 total Star Trek releases ever. So we got 799 to go. So fear not, we will get to your favorite episode, whether that's in Enterprise or Below Decks or Picard. We'll get to them. Don't worry.
And we do recognize the quality material that's been used in what is not considered canonical at the moment. So your favorite novels, we're not going to get to all 600 or 700 novels. I can say that up front. But top 50, I think that's very reasonable.
Oh, certainly, yeah. I can't wait personally to talk about Imzadi, which is my favorite Peter David Riker Troy novel, which really gets into their
first names.
Really gets into his tedious backstory there. It's pretty great.
You on the last time you mentioned Memory Alpha and Memory Beta. What's Memory Beta?
Oh.
I had never heard that before.
Do you want to take it, Doug, or shall I?
So the way Star Wars, before they broke it, had 5 levels of canon, with anything George Lucas put on the screen being the prime canon, and varying levels of the extended universe under that. Star Trek's is a little simpler. If it appears on the screen, it's canon. If it doesn't, it's not. So Memory Beta tracks all the stuff that's not considered canon because it never appeared on the screen. So all the novels, video games, etc. And but they shouldn't be dismissed either intrinsically or in what they've contributed to the universe. Certain things like Uhura's first name, Sulu's first name, all originated in the books. And were copied over. In fact, Sulu did not get his name, even though it had been established since I think the early 80s. It was not set on the screen until Star Trek VI.
Likewise, Uhura's name, Nyota, her first name, wasn't established until the J.J. Abrams movie. Even though everyone knows her name was always Nyota Uhura, we didn't know that for real until, 2009 or something like that?
So, fastidiousness and pedantry are very metal.
Well, it gets even better because Memory Alpha is itself a reference to the season 3 original series episode, The Lights of Zatar. And so Memory Alpha is the Federation's depository for history. It's like the Federation Galactic Archive. So it itself is like an in reference to Star Trek. It's like the archives of Star Trek. So, of course, the archives of Star Trek in the real world would be Memory Alpha.
Yeah,
which is it's much cleverer than the Wikipedia, which I mean is clever, which is a real thing. But the first time you hear it, exactly, the first time you hear it, it's great, and then every time after that, it's just like, did you check the Wikipedia, Doug? No, it's no good.
Sorry, so, it doesn't matter anymore anyway. So. Why check it? It's gone.
But everyone knows. Where do you draw the line with Star Wars canon? Like the Laserdisc version and earlier is correct, or when he changes stupid bullshit.
When he sells it, basically. So as Doug mentioned, there are levels of canon. So there were officially licensed Star Wars novels, like Truce at Bakura, which was considered almost quasi-canon. It wasn't official canon because it wasn't on screen, but it was very, very close. Lucas said this happened. But then when Disney bought Star Wars, Disney said all these legends, so the novels and video games and things that Lucas had licensed were called legends. So all these things now no longer exist. They're just, forget them. Forget they ever happened. And we might steal them for all the little computer animated series, which we have seen that they did. But everything you know about the history of the Star Wars universe before and after the Battle of Yavin, which of course is the most important date in Star Wars fandom, you don't know. The High Republic, who the fuck knows? I know it happened, but I don't know if Darth Plagueis did anything.
Yeah, it's and from a more practical level, people invested 20 years of their life, and hundreds of people came together to map out 10,000 years of history, all of which was very consistent with itself, given the number of authors. It's a very impressive work. They painted themselves into some corners by doing weird things like killing Chewie, but it is a shame. Because, I view the Timothy Zahn books as superior to everything but movies 1 and 2.
It's just a giant fuck you to the fans and whoever helped contribute to the mythos.
Exactly. So, for example,
I feel like that word is too good for Star Wars.
Well, and that's what's interesting about both Star Wars and Star Trek, in that they've taken a different approach to continuity than what we're used to in the comic universes. We're just poof, reboot, that's how it works. And you got all these sometimes concurrent realities.
Then you got 5 Spider-Man movies in 3 years.
Yeah, if it fails, start again.
And so even when they do kind of do a poofy reboot, they actually try really hard to make it fit within. So the whole J.J. Abrams tangent, it had so now we talk about the Kelvin universe and the Prime universe being the Star Trek we know. But not only was it established forward that there was a Prime universe event that spawned the Kelvin universe, but we actually, in the most recent season of Discovery, got confirmation that it exists. This timeline is known to exist in the distant future in the Prime universe too. So
wait, is the Prime universe, is that the original universe or the new universe?
The original universe is the Prime universe.
That's bullshit, because in linear algebra, if you transform a matrix, the new one becomes the prime. It implies it's been altered. So that I take exception to this. All right. So now
you'll be the first person to ever complain about that.
Now that no one's listening, how about you get into the episode? And,
okay, let's get started.
I'll listen to something else for a while and let me know when you're done.
I'm gonna try and make it more musically inclined too, because there's singing in this episode, Doug.
There is, yeah.
What's the episode?
Did we and staccato poetry?
Yeah,
there's a lot of interesting things happening.
Did we address what episode it is?
So we're talking about Charlie X, and the premise in a nutshell is the kid from that Twilight Zone episode grows up a bit and hits puberty and ends up in Star Trek.
That's an excellent synopsis of this episode.
So we open with and I ran all this through memory beta, and we're going to get on all these intersection points, and it's one of my operating premises that we're going to test over the next 80 episodes, that anyone mentioned in any, if you have a name in the original series, someone wrote at least one book about you.
Yeah.
But that is not true of the Antares or its crew.
That is very true, actually. So to set the stage, we begin again. If you've watched a remastered edition, you see the Enterprise with next to a ship. If you're watching the original version, I'm sure it's just like a paper bag or something next to the Enterprise.
There is no ship in the original version.
Yeah. Oh, it's just a shot of the Enterprise and say, "Believe us, there's a ship right out of frame." So they're in the transporter room, and our boy Charles Evans, aka Charlie X, is being beamed on board by the plucky crew of the Antares.
And I didn't note that the two people who do have memory beta entries in case they ever do get their novel. But yeah, it is interesting how they are just like the characters in the Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah,
I've got whatever Timmy wants, always he's the best. And this establishes one of those things people forgot about, which is the what's it actually called? But the Federation crest was originally the symbol of the Enterprise. It was a ship-specific insignia and not the insignia of Starfleet. So the people on this ship have different insignias. That holds up through the entire series.
So this thing is that a tractor? It's like a force field. Hey, force field.
It is. Oh, I have to switch back to the soundboard so I can ding you. Here we go. All right. Instead of paying attention, I'm going to play you random sounds, and I'll keep.
Okay, good.
Go ahead.
Well, you should figure out things we say a lot that you can count. So this is like a drinking game.
Right. I'll do my own game over here.
So he beams on over onto the Enterprise, and the first thing that arouses our suspicion is he seems like a handsome young man. He has a really heavy, hot-looking coat. Like it looks like a carpet that's been turned into a coat. And the crew of the Antares, Captain what's his name and his friend, they are really anxious and happy to get Charlie off their ship. So they say, "Here you go. You're gonna love the Enterprise even more than you love." They're gonna walk out the door in a second.
He left. Oh, that's another one for you. I'm not gonna ding you because I don't want to change pages. Go on.
So they're like, "Oh, you're gonna love it here on the Enterprise. There's 400 people. We learned there's 428 people on the Enterprise. This is the most people Charlie's ever seen. And we immediately learn Charlie's tragic past.
Why does he have a last name if there aren't that many people?
Well, he's human. He's a human boy.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wait, how old is this guy?
He's 17. Yeah.
Can we address how dumb his name is?
I think Charlie Evans is a pretty standard 60s boy's name.
I guess, but it's the future.
It's 1960, 2260, same difference.
Yeah. There were Charles 200, 300 years ago.
Did they go by Charlie?
They possible.
All right, I'm all worked up. I need to calm down.
Oh, you took a hypo spray.
That's right. That's 3 for you. Okay, so they let him off or something.
Yeah, so they let him off.
Backstory.
And so again, this is another episode where Kirk tries to give someone story in Brandy, which we don't understand.
Well, yeah, Kirk wants to have a stag party with those guys.
Yeah.
Because he asked them, he offers entertainment tapes and brandy. Like, sure you don't want to stick around? Got all the new entertainment tapes.
And this will actually come in later. But who walks by but everyone's favorite Star Trek character, Yeoman Janice Rand, who's the blonde one. And Charlie immediately takes notice of her because she's different than you and me and Captain Ramart and First Officer Tom Nellis. And you know how she's different? She's a girl.
What? That makes me want to...
And I do want to call it. There's some good Kirkage throughout this episode, but in that first scene, again, these early episodes have this weird kind of hard-boiled dialogue style at points. But yeah, I do really like. I guess this isn't really an example, but Charlie keeps interrupting Kirk, and Kirk goes, "You keep interrupting, Mr. Evans. That's considered wrong." But it's just to show you how much things have evolved in the future. It's not it's wrong.
It's wrong. So, okay, so that's the end of the teaser, and we go on, and Charlie gets a weird medical examination.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
That the first that appears in the
there are like there are foot pedals that are somehow attached to the wall in sickbay. It might be sickbay. I don't think it's the dispensary at that point. But he keeps pushing against the foot pedals, and that somehow tells Dr. McCoy everything he needs to know about his health. And we learn that he's a healthy and sexually mature young man.
Yeah, you got to make sure you check that first.
Yeah, I mean, and it's said almost in those words. It's very explicit that Charlie is sexually mature.
In case the audience missed any of the first 3 hints.
Yeah.
And I can't remember exactly what he says, but I remember McCoy assesses his health in a weird way. He says it's a perfect 100 or a 4. It's a 4 something, and it's like really
4.0. He says, I guess they're using like academic grades, so he gives Charlie a 4.0 on his health report. And like me, Charlie looks at him quizzically, and he said, "That means you're good. That means you're perfect."
He's the supplest, most virile young man. And he has a pleasant fragrance. I know, because I just updated my examination of the entire crew.
Yep.
Yes, that's creepy as shit.
And then later, Captain Kirk is told by Dr. McCoy that someone's going to have to teach Charlie about sex.
Hey, speaking of which, he took everything he learned from this, and the actor who played him had 7 kids. So maybe the doctor's assessment was correct.
I think so. He learned a lot.
And he had 3 wives.
So I remember they
Not at the
leave
same time.
they leave sick bay, and and then there's that great scene where he gets in the way of the techs who are lowering that like 40-foot plastic pole through a hole, which I'm sure the James Blish novel probably explains what they're doing. It's an interesting question. It's just like a PVC pipe. And I think that's the first appearance of the Jeffries tube. And this was also the first appearance of the casual captain's jacket. And Kirk changes his costume 1,000,000 times in this. It's almost like they recut the episode.
And actually, I've been doing some digging. So later on in the episode, Charlie is actually wearing a future uniform that Captain Kirk will be wearing. And it turns out that they tried to make one for William Shatner, and it wasn't big enough. So they gave it to young Charlie just to wear.
Yeah, I know Shatner went through his thin and fat phases in season.
So an important plot point here is while they're bringing the PVC pipe down the Jeffries tube, these 2 men of the future are like slapping each other.
Yeah.
Just kind of playfully.
Like men do, Tim.
Yeah, like men do when they're working with sensitive equipment on a military vessel. So that's happening. Oh, it's an alert of some kind.
It's Red Alert 2. But these sounds are brought to you courtesy of trekcore.com/audio.
That must be an early TOS Red Alert.
Yeah.
So Charlie being...
Also, I can't stop it. Oh, there it goes.
So Charlie, being an impressionable young man, imitates the slapping and slaps Yeoman Rand in the face. Is this
the lady?
This is the lady, yeah.
You're not supposed to slap them in the face. It's the...
That's almost precisely what Captain Kirk said.
Damn it!
You don't slap women. I think that's the line. You don't slap women.
It's something about hitting, like man on man. That's one thing. Man on woman.
That's different.
You don't.
So then there's a strange scene in the Enterprise recreation room. There's a lot of recreation in this episode. In this part, there's just like a really strange song about the Starship Enterprise that I'm almost certain Gene Roddenberry wrote. And it's
I'm hoping it's Tom Bombadil-ish.
Oh, it's Tom Bombadil awful. Here, let me read you some of the lyrics. Oh, on the Starship Enterprise, there's someone who's in Satan's guise, whose devil ears and devil eyes could rip your heart from you. At first his look could hypnotize, and then his touch would barbarize. His alien love could victimize and rip your heart from you. And that's why female astronauts, oh very female astronauts, wait terrified and overwrought to find what he will do.
Yeah, Gene definitely wrote that.
That sucked.
Yeah, and so Spock is playing his Vulcan harp, and Uhura is singing this, and this is the entire and only reason, besides that other episode in the Man Trap, that like 30-minute scene where they're flirting, sort of, that sets up the whole like Spock Uhura romance in the J.J. Abrams movies, and so she's singing about Spock, we guess, because he's the only one with devil ears. If you consider those devil ears.
Quick question: does the Vulcan harp, you said it was, does it use a 12-tone chromatic scale like Western music? I
think it does. I mean, I have a photo here.
What an amazing coincidence!
Let me. I'm sure there's a.
certainly speak to this in the memory beta entry on the harp.
Yeah, let's see. Let's see.
Well, while you're looking it up, I will find.
Well, and then we have that sequence with where he takes her voice because he wants to impress Rand with his card tricks.
Yeah,
which she seems genuinely impressed by, which is amusing.
because nothing says space science like card tricks.
Yeah,
And yeah, so he magically puts her face on the cards, and that amazes her, even though she travels faster than the speed of light on a regular basis across the galaxy. But it's kind of magical. And from there, I believe we go to the chef. The kitchen.
And Kirk's concern for his crew.
Yeah, which is really, we often think about how great Captain Kirk is, how he's like an empathetic, but nonetheless a leader. He knows how to make tough decisions, but he's also, unlike I would say Captain Picard, a man of the people. He's not aloof. He's with them, right? His pains are their pains, and their pains are his pains.
I concur.
Wait, they have a chef now?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So Kirk remembers
the foodamajigs.
Well,
no, there's
it all connects. All the pieces fit.
So Kirk remembers that on Earth it's Thanksgiving. That great Earth holiday of Thanksgiving.
They do celebrate it in Canada too. It's a different Thanksgiving.
He specifically said.
That's why no one knew, because it was October. Like, it's Thanksgiving. Everyone goes, it is?
So he specifically addresses the chef, which is Gene Roddenberry's only appearance in a Star Trek episode. Just his voice, but Gene Roddenberry is the chef.
So he's this character.
He instructs the chef that because today is Thanksgiving on Earth, that even though the crew has to eat synthetic meatloaf, it should look like turkey.
What?
I mean, that's canon. That's definitely canon.
I'm so glad I didn't waste my time watching this. I feel like it wouldn't help my stress.
Not. So Charlie, this is actually a major plot point. Charlie overhears this, and despite the fact that did we mention what happened to Charlie yet, Doug?
Last I heard, he got thoroughly examined and praised for his virility.
Oh, okay. So we should let you know that Charlie was orphaned at the age of 3, and he was.
How virile was he when he was 3?
I'm assuming not so virile, but everyone on the ship he was on died except Charlie, and he learned English through communicating with the computer, and he had the food packs or something, and then they asked him how he ate after the food packs went out, and he said something casually like he ate things that grew. We don't really find out a lot about that. So Charlie, presumably everything he knows about the world comes from the data banks of the ship he was on, the doomed ship. But to everyone's surprise, even though the meatloafs are in the ovens, they somehow become turkeys. Real turkeys.
Living turkeys? Food turkeys.
I assume dead food turkeys. But it's not really established. I think they have to be dead turkeys, because otherwise the chef would be really upset.
Yeah, and then we get to the first, and again, I love how the firsts don't matter here at all, since they just picked the episodes that ran, whatever they finished the special effects for got aired. But the first appearance of the 3D chess and Kirk and Spock playing it, and that there's a great. I guess Spock's pointing out that the resemblance between Charlie or occurrences on the ship resemble that of the extinct Thanian people. And then Kirk has a great line, like he has the Riker line where he goes, "Usually I'm with you, Mr. Spock, but not this time." Inviting more explication.
Yeah.
I hate to backtrack, but regarding the loot / liar / Vulcan thing, according to Memory Alpha, which has now polluted my my Chrome history, it says here in the final draft script of Charlie X, this musical instrument was described as a strange, stringed, guitar-like instrument that gives off unique and not at all Earth-scale semi-electronic sounds. So the answer to my question, 12-tone scale, no.
That's so Gene Roddenberry. It's nothing like Earth, an unspecified. Like if he tied sex in there somehow, which I guess the song kind of does. Yeah,
right.
It covers everything.
I mean, there is a hole in the middle of this thing. So and
the problem.
What?
Here's the problem. So the Vulcan lute is described as a 5-stringed instrument tuned to a diatonic scale, but it visibly has 12 strings.
Oh, yeah, right there. Tuned on a diatonic scale. So the script said one thing, but they maybe he retuned it for to be on the ship.
Because I mean, we haven't.
Sure, one of the novels explains this contradiction,
and we haven't been pointing it out a lot. But Spock is also half human, so maybe he has a half human lute. Because only humans use Western musical notation.
Right.
As opposed to all those other alien kinds of music.
What Vulcan Thanksgiving is like.
I mean,
is that an Enterprise?
Well, they eat meatloaf, so Spock was pissed. Well, he was pissed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Vulcans are vegetarian. We know that for sure. I think mostly, but are Romulans?
Maybe that's why they're so angry.
Maybe that is. But we're getting way sidetracked now.
All the Vulcan Thanksgiving meatloaf has been turned into Earth Thanksgiving turkeys in the ovens.
Right, magically.
I think that's where we are.
But Kirk doesn't see the pattern here. Spock's way ahead of him.
As always. And we should also point out that as always in chess, the super logical Spock is perpetually beaten by Kirk and his illogical game, because chess is nothing but a game of non-logical combinations and stuff. So that's important to keep in mind too.
Yeah,
but so he tries to teach. Spock tries to teach Charlie chess. Charlie gets very upset, and he melts all the chess pieces with his mind.
As one does.
And then
it's this. We go to this when we see future sports for the first time.
Well, before we get to future sports, though, we do need to mention that Charlie murders about 20 people.
Wait, what?
So as these strange things are going on, they decide, who we should really talk to.
Oh, right. Yes.
Is the Antares. Because maybe they had their synthetic meatloaves transformed into turkey. What's the deal? So they're trying to get the Antares on the space radio. When all of a sudden, the communications are lost. And I believe they circle back to see the Antares' last position, and there's only debris. Now, of course, Charlie was on the bridge, I believe, when they were trying to contact the Antares. So they just think it's very strange that the only way to get Charlie back, preventing him from going to the space colony where they're supposed to drop him off, has now conveniently disappeared and been destroyed.
And the ship had initiated ship-to-ship subspace communication. I think mentions Charlie, right? And we have to tell you something now that we're on the edge of
that's right.
Subspace communication. Then it blows up. And in the there's a missing scene when Kirk's down talking about the turkeys. He's in his regular shirt. When he's on the bridge, he's changed into his more casual jacket thing, as one does when they go to the bridge, I imagine.
Her costume changes here. He doesn't have his he's not eating on the bridge like he was in the last episode, but he's still pretty casual. He's a casual kind of guy. Everyone else is in their regular uniform, but when you're the captain, you're allowed to be relaxed.
Or a wrap-around jacket.
Mm-hmm. So, so things are getting spooky now. People have been murdered, and Yeoman Janice Rand is just really sick of being stalked by the creepy Charlie guy. So she finds someone Charlie's own age. So apparently there's a 17-year-old yeoman, third class, in Starfleet on the Enterprise. So he says, Rand introduces him to Yeoman Layton, who's a handsome young woman. She's no Janice Rand, but she's not so bad.
She does look identical to Rand, at least in terms of hairstyle.
But she has red hair, Doug. She's not blonde. She has that imperfect red hair that indicates that her parents conceived her while her mother was menstruating, as we know from medieval history.
There's no proper sound on my soundboard for this. Please continue.
Well, he says something that upsets her, and then she sort of pouts off, and it's all handled pretty badly by today's standards.
Basically, Charlie says, "I want nothing to do with you. You're ugly, and we're gonna have to not talk because I don't love you. I love Janice Rand." And he creepily stalks Janice Rand again. Again, Kirk tries to keep him under his wing. And that's finally, now we can get to Doug's favorite scene, the Enterprise gym and the art of judo.
Yeah. Well, the future sports stuff is always great, and this is the first time, and there's a weird vibe to the entire thing because Kirk does all of his martial arts shirtless, wearing nothing but red Starfleet tights.
Really tight tights.
And it's all about
the yeomans.
And it opens, I guess the women in the future mostly just do cartwheels. There's 3 women cartwheeling out the door. Then you get Kirk stage falling and trying to get Charlie to stage fall, and then him and the other guy throw each other around.
At what point do they wrestle?
Oh, well, yeah.
Kirk really trying to get Charlie to wrestle with him, but Charlie's not going for it. So ultimately they demonstrate.
Yeah, it was probably wise. I heard about your medical exam.
Yeah, no, that vibe exists.
Yeah,
Kirk, they're playing for keeps.
It's just 20 years too soon for a good 80s. You're the best around. Nothing's ever gonna break.
imagine that montage like going on. So they're wearing, they're red. I would describe it as like a Charlie's wearing like a bathrobe, but a bathrobe that's cut above the waist. It's really a sight to see. And that's how you exercise in the future. People, there are things on the wall very similar to the leg thing we saw in sickbay, where people are exercising by just holding on like things like this. So Sam is Captain Kirk's regular sparring partner. So he and Kirk demonstrate throwing each other around to demonstrate how fun physical roughhousing is with another man to Charlie. And Charlie wants
tights.
So eventually he's allowed to come in, and he agrees to get thrown by Kirk, and he just kind of spills and falls awkwardly, and everyone laughs. And Charlie is so upset that he murders Sam. He makes him disappear.
And so, Tim, to show you the outfits, check the text channel, the general.
Working on it. If I do that, it's gonna mess up the stream. So, whatever. They can look.
If we ever start posting episodes with pictures, maybe that's the picture of this week's podcast.
That sounds like work for me.
Okay, never mind. So pretty soon thereafter, a whole bunch of murders happen. Like he turns Yeoman Layton into a lizard. He steals people's faces. The Enterprise is notably disturbed by all the people getting murdered, so they try to turn around. But Charlie uses his mental powers to force the Enterprise to continue towards the Alpha whatever colony that they're going to.
Colony 5.
Colony 5.
I try to think that's an
Alpha 5. Alpha 5.
Band. Yeah, it's all. It all connects. Yeah, and there's the subtext that Charlie may particularly have it in for women.
Yeah, he does not like women, but he likes women, but he doesn't like women. So I believe he enters Yeoman Rand's quarters, and she is shocked and horrified that he came in without knocking. And there's a really creepy, like, I only want you kind of speech. And so somehow big, thrust of the narrative is that they're all on the bridge. Charlie has revealed his powers to the crew. He teleports Rand in her skimpy sleeping robe, I guess, to the bridge. So she's on the bridge in her pajamas, and everything. Charlie is in control, and he's laughing maniacally as people do.
Well, he appears to kill Rand.
Yeah.
We're on the bridge now.
Oh, nice. And so he appears to kill Rand. There's a force field, all kinds of. To be honest, the fourth act is a little sloppy and a little confusing. But anyway, so all this comes, and then there needs to be someone to save the day. The crew is powerless. After literally like 6 demonstrations of his power, even Kirk has figured out that something's not quite right.
What tipped him off?
I think it was seeing like Sam vaporized in front of his eyes, and he just kind of
strange. He was just here.
Yeah, in a great William Shatner moment, he's like, "Wait, shit."
How long is the sound? It's still going. Oh, okay. The second I ask, it goes away.
So now we need someone to save us. We need some kind of intervention, because clearly no one on the Enterprise, even though like you can try and put him in a force field, but he'll just make the whole wall disappear. There's nothing you can do to stop Charlie. So who steps in and saves the day, Doug?
Well, I really like there's some good. At one point in the briefing room, when they're talking about whether because the whole notion that he's a Thausian or whatever is brought up.
Yeah.
But definitively he is not, because the development of his fingers and toes exactly match present developments of man on Earth.
Shit, yeah, no, we totally forgot about that. Yeah, apparently the best way to tell an alien from a human is the way that their fingers and toes are. So if you ever think, that's a medical fact. So if you ever think you're being confronted by an alien, have them go, show you their hands.
But hasn't all of the aliens have had slight modifications to their nose and or forehead and or ears? Who's checking hands?
Well, I think that's what Dr. McCoy tells us. I mean, it's very important.
Yeah, the science is going to change a lot in the next couple hundred years. And
then why did he give him a thorough examination?
Well, he did. That's why we know he's not a Thasian.
Yeah, I mean, that was to check his health, not to confirm whether he was an alien or not.
Yeah.
It was a byproduct.
He's a survivor of trauma.
Hands. I was too busy looking at other things.
But yeah, so when they're on the bridge and they need to take, Kirk knows exactly what needs to happen, which is violent intervention.
Yep.
Of which only he can do. Yep. So they start to contrive. Oh yeah, my favorite scene where they realize that Charlie hasn't been killing people, so he must be expending all of his powers, be like the boundary limit of his powers, just in controlling the ship. So they theorize if they turn on all the lights and circuits, that they can overwhelm him. So he comes up to the bridge because I think they're trying to change course again. And then McCoy and Spock go to console by console and just start turning everything on.
If we know anything from the In-Ear Monitors episode, we know that the more things you have running to one box, the harder it is to manage. So that's like a very practical application of this principle in the world of Star Trek. The Brain 2.0 won't be able to handle, just like the Charlie X.0 isn't able to handle all the Enterprise being on.
I've waited long enough. I'm going to take him on. That's very good dialogue here. If we could tax his power, turn on every device in the ship, every circuit, every light, all of it. And while he's fighting that, if you could distract him, if I could distract him, maybe you could tranquilize him and keep him under till we reach Colony 5. Risky, Jim.
But luckily, it doesn't need to go to that, because in the midst of this genius plan, the giant green, transparent, floating head of a Thasian appears, which immediately begs the question: if Thasians are giant floating heads, how can you know what their fingers and toes are like?
Yeah, and the ship, it knows the rules of the sea. It despite being more advanced, it hails them.
Yep.
Pulls off the starboard bow.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, that was the wrong sound. Nope. I'll find it. Keep going.
And then the Thasian.
How is that? It says hailing.
That's a hailing sound. That's like an Uhura hailing sound.
And the Thasian scene, it's got the usual. It's got the Star Trek. Twist isn't the right, but ask questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
because it's despite the, everyone that he killed is restored. They get control of the ship. The Thasian said, go ahead, Matt.
Not everyone Charlie killed is restored, Doug.
Oh, the 20, yeah, they couldn't do anything about the
20 people on the Antares are still dead because the Thasians give you some bullshit like they weren't in the right frame. But since we're in this frame, all the Enterprise characters that we've loved since last week are still alive.
How convenient.
And I think that's when Janice Rand I think that's when Janice Rand materializes on the bridge in her nightgown. Even though Sam, who I assume comes back, is not returned anywhere near the bridge.
Yeah, and then starts the dialogue between Kirk and the Thasian. And there seems to be some ambiguity, because he was raised as a human, maybe he is human. And
I believe, my understanding was that Charlie was indeed a human boy. And the Thasians found him stranded and alone when whatever the accident was on the transport. And they are the ones who taught him how to survive.
Oh, so he got, okay. Yeah, and so it's really a enculturation issue.
Yeah. I mean, so like, for example, like if you as a 3-year-old were lost at sea and picked up by Koreans, like you would know how to speak Korean. So likewise, because Charlie was picked up by like telekinetic aliens, he knows how to be telepathic and telekinetic and non-corporeal.
On Young.
Yeah, and then we get this interesting back and forth, because despite all of what Kirk has seen, Kirk believes the boy belongs with his own kind. Mm-hmm. The Thasian says would be impossible. With training, we can teach him to live in our society if he can be taught not to use his power.
And the Thasian responds that, he will use his power. There's no way that a human can have this power and not use it.
Yeah, and then Kirk, is there nothing you can do? And the Thasian, we offer him life, and we will take care of him. Come, Charles. First time we hear his full name. No, he's in trouble. And then Charlie has that, that good, very Gene Roddenberry, very Star Trek. They don't know. Oh, please don't let them take me. I can't even touch them. Janice, they can't feel. Not like you. They don't love. Please, I want to stay.
And so you know what happens? Can you guess what happens?
No.
He goes to live his touchless, miserable eternity with the Thasians, but the Enterprise is safe.
Yeah, and then Rand is crying at the end, but Kirk's there. He tells her it's all right.
I like the, oh my God, that's a really good gasp. That was amazing.
Thank you.
All right, so I guess we got. Oh, and we got to mention this was the first time. Couple first. This is the first bottle episode.
Yeah.
And it's also the first time that U-Spa is mentioned.
Right, but maybe we should take this one by one because Timothy looked quizzical when you said it was a bottle episode.
Well,
so maybe
I know what a bottle episode is, but I was just thinking they're on a. So a bottle episode is when the whole episode takes place in one place. So that way it lowers production costs because you only need one set or one related series of sets. But if they're on a starship, shouldn't there be a lot of bottle episodes?
Yeah, season 3.
But yes, I mean, but the original idea of Star Trek was a wagon train to the stars. So part of the pitch of Star Trek was that every week you'd go to a new exciting place. And so the second episode goes nowhere.
Fair. Okay, yeah. I buy that. I really want to poke holes into everything.
It literally is only 4 sets. You've got the hallway, the rec room, which is also the briefing room, and then the shared bedroom, and then sick bay, which is probably also another set.
Yeah, and
quarter room.
I know the gym is a redress of the engineering set. Something cool about this episode is that these very early episodes had a lot of really good, interesting lighting because they were trying to sell colored televisions. So they were trying to really highlight, look at all these cool lighting effects. But by the time they got to the 10th episode, it was really annoying to rig up and keep these lights all consistent. So they just gave up and it just came back to being gray. But for the first couple of times, they're like, we can show off colors and blues and pinks. And I also think that's why there's so many strangely colored costumes, is they're really trying to sell the fact that they're a color show.
Yeah, and the cinematography it's amazing on that level, and you just rarely see that saturation. And what's also really fun to do is switch your TV to black and white. The show still looks great.
Yeah,
because they shot it to look great both ways. You do that to the next generation, no.
No.
But, yeah, if I recall, the cinematography or the person responsible for photography was a veteran of Gone with the Wind, so they knew something about oversaturated color and how to sell RCA sets.
Yeah, exactly. Doug, do you know the Star Trek connection with the director of this episode?
I don't.
All right, so this is really going to be fun. So when we get to the Next Generation episode, The Mind's Eye, which everyone knows is the episode where Geordi's brainwashed by the Romulans to start a Klingon civil war, the Klingon ambassador, who spoiler alert, is a Romulan agent, is played by Larry Dobkin, who is the director of this episode.
I guess he didn't do anything in season 1, so he didn't hate the show.
Yeah, I think those are the only Star Trek things he ever did. This episode, and then came back as a Klingon 28 years later.
All right, so I guess we got 2 questions to answer. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is it metal, and then is it good? In real terms and in relative terms. Is it metal? On the surface, no. You go a level deeper, yeah. The whole adolescent angst, misanthropy.
Don't forget lots of people died. That's pretty metal.
Yeah, and like when he takes that lady's face, that was pretty metal.
I was, before thinking about it, I was like, it doesn't sound metal at all.
See, I should take the opposite approach. I'm going to say it's pretty metal on the surface, but then when you go below, it's not metal at all. So as we mentioned, there's all this rage and violence. There's lots of machismo. There's lots of unnecessary shows of masculine bravado and shirtlessness.
This is all 80s metal to the extreme.
Violence, like women. You don't hit women, but you can hit men. Charlie pleads with Captain Kirk to teach him how to fight because fighting is what makes you a man. But in the end, I would say that this is if I was to assign a genre to this episode, I would kind of make it like maybe like a post 1992 Sting album, because it's lonely and it's tortured, and it's there's a greatness there, but it's also a greatness that comes out of pain. So whatever genre you want to call that's what I would classify this episode as.
I'm trying to think about the Thanksgiving angle. There was nothing metal about that whole thing.
No, disagree.
Oh yeah?
How did Thanksgiving become a worldwide holiday?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't know what happened in the dark period in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Right.
We made a fatal assumption that they were talking about the same American Thanksgiving. This could be, the Thanksgiving to celebrate the end of the eugenics wars, or, the Third World War, or the post-atomic horror. There's lots of things that you could give thanks for.
Yeah, this could be, all the people you see in or whatever the pilot of Next Gen is. It's those people. It's their thing.
Yeah. I mean, the turkeys part is harder to rationalize, but I guess other people eat turkeys.
But it's not like Thanksgiving is just a U.S. holiday. I mean, already they celebrate it in Canada.
True, but it's a different Thanksgiving. It's like a month later or a month before.
Right.
A different Thanksgiving acknowledging the same thing, but what happened up there, which they claimed happened earlier, as they do. But yeah,
They had to scoop our Thanksgiving. They had to scoop our Independence Day.
I'm going to go with Matt, and because you get the hard humanist turn at the end, and the dialogue onto his place in society, and blank slate thinking versus predisposition, and all that. And that's not really metal.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be a more metal episode if their plan had worked, and if they overcame Charlie's superhuman abilities through their cleverness and ingenuity and sheer force of will. We have a stronger will, and therefore, we can even outclass this pubescent god, right? That's the kind of thing I imagine a metal Star Trek episode should do.
Yeah, regeneration through violence.
Yeah, like that episode, I believe, where Worf and Jadzia Jax get married, and we learn that the Klingons, the gods created the Klingon heart, and then the Klingon heart slew the gods for their audacity for creating it. I mean, that's pretty metal. That's fucking metal.
Yeah, so I guess for this episode, I'm gonna have to say it's kind of metal, but in the end, it is not. So that's a big old. This episode is not metal. Did you want to answer whether it was good? Because you already have my answer.
Yes, we do. I mean, we know you don't think it was good, but also you didn't watch the episode.
Right.
So maybe you just hate me and Doug.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. We'll stay tuned to another episode to find out the answer to that.
Well, I think part of as far as this probably isn't the only episode with this fundamental premise. It's mediocre. But it's not unwatchable by any means. I think one way to tell maybe the resonance of some of these episodes with people is what ancillary media is created. And I looked it up. Charlie is mentioned in a Discovery novel that just came out. Ooh. And he appears I think as a villain in a Starfleet Academy comic book story. and that's it.
That's not a lot. That's less than like Tremaine.
Yeah.
That's pretty bad. I'm actually going to say this episode is good, but probably not for the reasons you might be thinking. Unlike the Man Trap, now I know that these are being shown out of order, their production order, right? And I agree that this is a plot that gets rehashed. In fact, the next episode we watch will have nearly the exact same plot. Spoiler alert. But that being said, I felt that this episode felt a lot more like a Star Trek episode than, say, the Man Trap. Like they're becoming more comfortable with the tropes of the show. So it's not, when you go to the Natural History Museum and you see like the hall of like dinosaurs and things and look at all the proto birds, like there's a point where you're like, that kind of looks like a bird. And I feel like at this point, it kind of looks like Star Trek. It's not very good Star Trek. It still needs to lose its tail and its teeth. But you know what? God damn it, it looks like Star Trek.
Yeah, and you know what? On that, this episode is very, because of its limited setting, focused on the type of world building that so inspired a lot of viewers later on to obsessively rewatch this stuff because it you actually see people living together on a starship and see them not on duty for the first time. Not super significant, but a lot of the episode is based on people, these interpersonal relationships outside of the context of professional experience. And I really think that was a big part of the appeal to the show to a lot of people.
I was trying to see if there were any songs or anything related to Charlie X. And when you type in Charlie X metal into Google, you just get Anthrax drummer Charlie Benante.
Nice.
You got to search for Charlie X Filk. And I am sure there will be some songs.
There's nothing on Metal Archives for Charlie X.
Damn.
Unsurprisingly.
So that's Charlie X.
All right. Sounds like a mediocre non-metal episode. The waste of everyone's time.
Well,
I would agree that it was metaler than the Man Trap. Probably.
I don't know. It had a vampire.
It's a solid vampire, though.
Well, salt, that's electrolytes.
I think when we reach it, first of all, I'm really excited when we reach an actual metal original series episode, and I hope it comes soon. But something we should point out, Doug, is there's no Sulu here and no Scotty, and I think a true metal episode needs to lean heavily on both of those characters.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Or whoever appears in the Gamesters of Triskelion. It doesn't get more metal than that.
I mean, that's a pretty fucking metal episode.
All right, well,
but you know what?
We'll get to it eventually.
Yeah, we will. And I actually think the next episode might surprise us.
The next Gangbusters good. It's the same story taken 3 levels, and you get. I'll just withhold my commentary because there's so much to say.
And we're gonna kick some lithium fracking ass next time. So get ready.
Hey, watch the potty mouth, fucker. All right. Well, thanks for slogging through this, and we'll see you next time.
How long was this?
We are at about 70-ish minutes. Approaching
getting better.
70 minutes. Yeah, we're getting better.
Well, let's close it out and debrief. Thank you, Metal Nation. Podcast Them Down fans. I'm going to leave it to the man on the boards to close us out.
Thank Thanks for listening to Podcast Them Down. You can find Burning Shadows, ISENMOR, and recently vacated raves on Bandcamp, as well as Facebook, along with Fade to Black Metallica Tribute and Podcast Them Down itself. Until next time, keep it metal.